Welcome to the Intentional Life podcast, where it's all about real strategies, real tools, and techniques to help you truly become the author of your life story.
Hi, guys. Hello. Welcome back to the Intentional Life podcast.
So Camilla, since for the last podcast episode, we talked a little bit about purpose, which everyone knows is something that I'm really passionate about. I thought, this episode we would maybe focus on you and what you do, because I totally love and support, your work. And I have so many, even friends in my immediate environment who are going through, moving abroad, changing countries, and dealing with a lot of circumstances that sometimes they're just not equipped how to deal with it. So I thought maybe you could share, a little bit more about your story and your tools and what you do in your line of work. And maybe we could start with you telling a little bit more about the type of women you work with, because I know that you predominantly work with women who live abroad. And maybe you can tell a little bit more about this type of woman and the challenges that she faces from your experience and from your work, what you've seen so far.
Of course. So yes, definitely women who live abroad, but not only that, women who moved abroad for love. So, some of them are expat wives. So their husband would be relocated by his company to a different country. Others are diplomat wives, military wives, athlete wives. So different, women who will lead a very international lifestyle that's not necessarily based in one place.
Mm-hmm.
And some are on temporary assignments, so they might know, well, we'll be here for 4 years and then we'll come back home and that'll be just that. Others, again, they go from one destination to the next and the next, and they become what I call serial expats. It really becomes their lifestyle to move around. And yet other women, they move for good to, for instance, their husband's country. So if they marry someone from a different country and he is not mobile, maybe he has his own business or a family business or a career that cannot be moved somewhere else. So she will be very likely to have to move to his country. And so the reasons for why they moved might be a little different, but the challenges they encounter are very similar. And when you move abroad for someone else, for your significant other, you really put yourself in a vulnerable position, right?
Yeah.
So you left your family and your friends behind, the people that love you and support you and cheer for you. You oftentimes, these women, they sacrifice their job or their career, speaking in their native language. That's a big one, because language is really our personality, and our knowledge is very closely tied to language and whether we are able to express our humor, our, whatever it is that we know or we studied, or, our opinion in politics. That's very closely tied to being able to express it through language. So yeah, by giving all of those things up, a lot of women experience a sense of loss of identity and of safety. And it's easy in that situation to find yourself feeling lost and lonely and isolated. Then another factor is, when you're an expat wife, your husband, you were relocated for your husband's career. So a lot of times he works at a high-powered job, he works long hours, and yet within the safety and the structure of his work environment. But the accompanying spouse, on the other hand, is spending her days managing life in the foreign country. A lot of times they're not able to work. There might be visa restrictions or language restrictions, or also if you're only going to be there for a couple of years, it might be difficult to pick up something. And so they, some of them find work, and that's great, but others can't or don't. And then they might, spend their time as I said, managing life. So maybe, driving the kids to school, doing paperwork, which we all know it takes ages in another country to do all those paperwork. It's horrible. I hate it.
Yes.
Running errands, dealing with construction workers in another language, all very necessary things, but that can end up being really frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and I know this is true for myself, they often feel the need to overcompensate with their kids who don't have their typical support system of friends and family and grandparents around. And also maybe, to put on a happy face in public. There's often a lot of pressure to appear well, especially in diplomatic circles, I found. And eventually all of those things, everyone is kind of pulling from that accompanying spouse, and it can really eventually leave her feeling very drained. So that is a bit the problematic that my clients come to me with.
That's really interesting, because actually when I think about it, the way listening to you is that usually is, if the wife moves with a spouse who got, a relocation or a different job, is the attention almost goes to the husband, right? And the wife is kind of left in the shadows and, trying to do her best, but not really hasn't got any support system. If the children are involved, it's just really taxing. Like the way you said it, I was like, wow, I would be really lost as well.
Yeah.
Looking for myself again. So you are pretty international yourself, and you lived in a few different countries. You moved several times, even with your family. You're married to someone from a different culture. Can you talk a little bit more about your own experience?
Yes. So I've pretty much been moving around in a 3-year rhythm ever since I was 18, I'd say.
Wow.
So I was, from very early on, I was very much exposed to different cultures and languages, because I have, grandparents from different cultures as well. And my mother is a diplomat's child, and they've been, moving around all her life. So I very much identified with this international persona, and I would lend things from here and there. And as I always say, and I mentioned this in the podcast before, and I know this resonates with you too, Vilma, is that I just always wanted out into the big wide world. And I felt like I don't really belong here. I have, so much more going on and of different cultures and identities. So I just always wanted out. And so, came as no surprise to anyone, I think, that I decided to study abroad. I studied international relations in the UK. I then did a master's degree in Spain. I then repatriated to Vienna, which also comes with its share of challenges, readapting to your hometown. So really it's a very weird situation, because you feel silly for having challenges in adapting again, because it is your city, everyone, the language, the culture, and yet you've changed. But then again, it's really hard to talk about this with others and to get their sympathy, because they're like, well, you're just coming home, like, well, what's the problem?
You've only been away for like 3 or 4 or 5 years, because I had the same.
Exactly. Yeah. And it really does change you, though. And then it was in Vienna that I met my Spanish husband, because he was at the time working for his international company in Vienna. And we fell in love and got married. And pretty much around the same time we got married, he was being relocated again. So in our 6 years of marriage, by now we have moved to 3 different destinations, had 2 kids, bilingual and multicultural kids. So it's great, because we see that it really works. They really, they know exactly which language to speak with whom, and we expose them to both cultures. And I must say though, everything changed a little bit for me when I got married, but especially when I had kids. So I guess the sense of freedom and curiosity you have as a young or single person, and we both had that, my husband and I. When you have kids, it kind of gets substituted with like a sense of nesting, let's say, or of wanting to settle and be safe. And now it's not just about you anymore. It's about where do you want your kids to grow up? Where do you want their roots to be? What kind of life do you wish for them? What will they say when someone asks them, where are you from? Will they even know how to answer that? You know, those are really common challenges of the so-called third culture kids. But anyway, I mean, I've learned to stay in the present moment and not worry too much. And I don't know where I'll be in a few years' time, but honestly, it doesn't scare me anymore.
That's great. That's really inspiring that you sort of overcome that and change, you know, kind of reframed how you look at it, right? Because for some people, they choose to believe that it's, you know, horrible, the worst thing that could happen to them. They're taken away from the familiar environment, and now they, you know, they end up in a culture maybe they don't even enjoy. Imagine if you were in a culture, because from what I know, like, you don't mind, you like Spanish culture, but imagine you were in a country that was not, you know, that was not resonating with you. And I would also imagine there is a huge difference between choosing to go somewhere and also following your spouse and having to go somewhere, right?
Absolutely. It's a huge difference. And it's actually precisely why a lot of my clients suffer. So the difference, I mean, it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Also the problem is that when you move for someone else, I mean, you're not forced to move, right? It's let's say it's initiated by the spouse because of circumstances, and you hopefully, you know, you freely chose your spouse and you want to create a life with them or your partner.
I think so.
Hopefully.
Yes.
And yet the circumstances that he will bring into the relationship and into your life, they are because of him, right? So in that case, it's very tempting to also hold it against him at a later stage. You have an argument or when you're not feeling well, and to tell yourself that I wouldn't be living this if it weren't for him. Is it really worth it to go through all of this? You know, that's a very common question that my clients ask themselves when they feel so frustrated and they're just not sure anymore if it's even worth it. And however, when you do that, you are essentially giving your power away. You turn yourself into the victim, and you will, you know, consciously or unconsciously attract feeling even more helpless, even more powerless, even more disconnected, you know, from your spouse, from that place that you live in, from the locals or the other people there, and also from yourself, because you won't feel yourself, right? And at the same time, your partner is kind of burdened with twice the responsibility of having, you know, brought you to this different country or initiated the move. And if that becomes a pattern and a dynamic in the relationship of, you know, victimhood and overwhelm or withdrawal, even on the other hand, in response, and it's like a vicious cycle, then it will slowly but surely make both parties miserable.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen. So what would be the solution then? How do you help your clients cope with that? And how do you help them find that happiness and, you know, peace with the global, you know, mobile lifestyle?
Yeah. So I run an international and multilingual coaching business. So I coach in English, in German, and in Spanish.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, those are the three languages I speak fluently, and I speak them like literally every day. So, and it's really dedicated to empower the type of woman that I've just described before, who lives abroad or moves back home and having those repatriation issues, to create a truly fulfilling and meaningful life on her terms. So I'm all, you know, team accompanying spouse. And I do that by two means. So the first is actually a concept that I've came up when I was preparing myself for my last move, which was a bit unexpected. I mean, it was unexpected that we would move at that time, but then again, I had a year to prepare. So yeah, so it was both expected and unexpected, I guess. And I call it the inner happy place, state of mind. So obviously this is derived from having a happy place, but since you move all the time, you cannot have a physical happy place. I mean, you can have that in addition, but you know, if you leave, then it won't be there anymore. So really the idea that we can have our inner happy place, we can work on that, we can develop that. It's kind of like that feeling of being whole. Nothing's missing. Even if you're not at home or in the country of your choice, you're whole still, you know. You're at home within yourself. You don't need anyone else or anything else, or you don't need countries and landmarks to feel at home. You can do that on your own. And I sometimes also liken it to a feeling of an internal embrace, which I think it's a nice metaphor. And in this state of mind, we become more detached from the things that ultimately cause us pain, including worrying so much about the future, you know, interpreting things in a dramatic way, telling us stories, playing the victim, all of those things. It'll just help us to become more authentic, more intentional, more conscious, and just infinitely more content with our lives and with ourselves. And it's also, you know, investing in the relationship to yourself in order to show up better in other relationships and create much stronger bonds with loved ones. So yeah, really, when you work on the relationship that you have with yourself, all other relationships will just improve tremendously. So I really work a lot about developing this kind of mindset, this kind of state of mind. And in addition, or complementary to that, I developed something that I called my 4-pillar approach. So with, you know, thanks to all of the experience that I've gathered from my own life and my clients' lives, I noticed that their main problems usually revolve around these 4 pillars, right? So they are, the first one is radical self-love and awareness. Again, a lot of the inner happy place mindset, you know, the relationship to yourself, becoming really self-aware, understanding yourself. Why does this make me feel like that? You know, it's, let me tell you, and you know that, it's never what you think at first. You know, if you feel triggered in your host country to feel this or that, this goes much deeper than we initially think. It's not because they're annoying or they're, you know, whatever. It's something, it scratches a wound that you have deep within. The same holds true in your relationship, the things that trigger you about your partner, and understanding why exactly this upsets you so much or, you know, annoys you so much is really key of finding a solution, right? So it's super important to work on ourselves first and foremost. Then the second pillar is relationships and family life. Problems in, you know, the relationship are often at the root of at least the presenting problem. So a lot of my clients come to me with a relationship problem, essentially. So I work a lot on that too. Then I have resilience and resourcefulness. Super important for, you know, this kind of international lifestyle. Also knowing how to become more flexible, how to recover from difficulties that you will inevitably face. And there's this nice metaphor that I like, which is resilience and resourcefulness is about adjusting the sails when the wind is blowing the wrong way, right? So you just learn how to kind of steer through that and still reach the island, let's say.
Yeah.
And then the last pillar, and this will be the one that resonates most with you, is meaning and purpose. So really finding something meaningful and purposeful in your new life abroad that will give you a reason to get up every morning. You know, that's super important. And I feel like it's something that's often overlooked, and women are kind of set up in this, in expat activities and social clubs, which can also, social connections can provide a whole lot of meaning. And what meaning looks like is totally individual. So, and yet you need to have something that really gives you the sense of, it excites me, it fulfills me, and I feel that I can impact and accomplish things. So that would be kind of the definition. You definitely need that. And I work with my clients on building and developing all of those pillars, and the results are remarkable and measurable, but most importantly, sustainable.
I love that. I love that. It sounds like a really sort of well-rounded approach, how to tackle different areas, but how all of them are extremely important, so if you take one away, you will feel like you're limping, that table will be lacking one leg. So I love that. And also, when you were talking about resilience, what I remembered is I was just listening about this concept called anti-fragile. I don't know if you heard of it, but have you heard of this? Anti-fragile
No.
is basically that whenever we have certain obstacle in our lives, so something is not going our way, your woman moving abroad and it's not her choice. So how do we learn not only to thrive, in spite of it, but thrive because of it? Meaning, how can we turn it around and become even stronger? How do we make this that happened to us flourish into this beautiful human,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So I love that. And that resonated with me. And talking about, issues, what would you, from your experience, would you see is sort of the biggest pain point, or where do the women get stuck the most, that stuckness area? What do you think that is?
So first of all, definitely relationship problems, underlying relationship problems, that, sometimes they have been there before. Other times they just surfaced because of the new dynamic and the new environment and circumstances. And yeah, it's just, I guess, dealing with relationship problems when you're so far away from home is more difficult. It's harder on you because your significant other is oftentimes the main reference out there with you. And it's really important to be a team, so if you don't have your family and your friends and your job and your distractions that you usually have back home, it requires you to just sit there and stew over your pain and, feeling like you're in the wrong movie. So it brings a new sense of urgency maybe to the table when you're abroad and you're dealing with those problems. And then also a very big thing is when the spouse, the woman, cannot manage to make this experience abroad about herself. Make it their own, sort of. Own it, right? Living there with purpose, with intention, feeling empowered, and as I mentioned before, what this will look like exactly is completely individual. And so my role as a coach is really just helping women figure out what that could look like for them, that they don't have to say, well, I'm here because of my spouse, but rather I'm here because I have a purpose here. I'm called to be here. And I always say it's no coincidence that, first of all, that you are alive, that you have this life, that you have this partner, and that you live in the country that you're living in. This is all, I am at least convinced, this is all part of a bigger plan. And, if you don't believe this, then at least let's agree to just say, we might not know that this is true, but we also don't know that it is not true. So, what makes you feel better? Thinking that this is all for a greater reason and a greater good? I think so. So let's just go with this, for the exercise sake. And living abroad, it can also open so many doors for you. So really finding ways to make this your own experience will make all of the difference.
I like that. I think is that that's applicable to everything in life, right? When we
Yeah.
get, when we get promoted or demoted, like what are we gonna do about it, right?
Yeah.
It's all up to
True.
us. So you have to bring the power in your own hands. And what would you say is like your favorite or, the main benefit of life abroad?
So apart from, let's say, the obvious of, broadening your horizon and getting to know different cultures and
Yeah.
languages and people and so forth, I think one of the biggest beauties is that you get to know yourself and your loved ones, the ones that are there with you, your significant other or your kids, if you have kids, in a completely different context. And everyone is so free to be who they are, so when you're back home, I feel like we spend so much time comparing ourselves to others.
Mhm.
Even I noticed that in my own life, and I never thought, and I don't think people would would think that of me. I never thought I was the type to compare myself or to, look at, oh, she's doing this, so I should. I'm actually not that type, and yet I noticed that I've been doing it too. I think it's a very natural, or also society kind of makes us do this. Well, at 18, you should be doing this, and at 30,
The
if you don't have this
program.
and that, and then and most people, they will look for this, and you're the expert on this, on basically living other people's lives or goals, and how this can essentially put such a pressure on yourself, on your loved ones,
Yeah.
on your life. And and even worse, like one is, well, I'm not sure if even worse, exactly the same, in badness, sort of. So you can compare yourself to others, or you can constantly compare your significant other and your children to their peers. Well, other husbands are doing this and that. Why aren't you? Well, your classmates are all getting A's. Why don't you? And, this kind of pressure, it's just, as I'm saying this, I feel like, this tightness, it's such a
Contraction.
cage.
Hmm.
It's really, when you're abroad, you don't, I think you usually don't compare so much to others because they are different. Essentially, they've had a different upbringing, and or even your kids, at least they're mixed, so they're not 100% from that country, let's just say.
Right.
And so, yeah, that is such a beautiful opportunity to get to know them in a different light, and to also allow them to see what they're like, without feeling I have to be this and I have to be that. I
Mm.
think you definitely compare yourself less to, people abroad.
Yeah. So it's almost like you get that permission slip almost, right? For yourself and your family to just do and be them, right? It's easier
Yeah.
because no one is expecting you to be or act in a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's
to
great.
also develop your own, maybe, family traditions and family habits that aren't in sync with what people do back home, right? Or what my culture does or what your culture does. It's a new thing now. We are in charge, sort of.
Oh, I
Yeah,
like
I
that.
love that.
Yeah, I like that. Never thought of it. That's a great one. Okay, so that's great. That's really exciting. I'm excited. I want to work with you.
You're welcome. You can.
So
Well, we work with each other all the
yeah,
time
no,
anyway. We're
we
like,
do. But no, I'm excited. So for those women, who resonate with what you're saying, who live abroad, who are struggling, how could they work with you?
so, first of all, know that the feelings that you're having, the negative feelings that you're having about your move and about your international life, are completely normal. So, this is, and also they're normal, and they can be improved. Let's just say, not fixed, because there's nothing wrong with feeling bad. Um, and yeah, so if this resonates with you, and if you identify with what I've been saying, then please feel free to reach out to me. You can go to my website, which we'll post below, camillaquintana.com. Follow me on social media. I post lots of tips and tools there as well. And I offer a free consultation also, where we can just, get to know each other and see what's going on and how exactly I can help you. And yes, and then I offer my programs. So I have a 1 month, a 3 month, and a 5 month program that do revolve around the inner happy place, finding your inner happy place, and working on your 4 pillars. Although not every woman needs or wants to focus on them all. Sometimes it's just one that really needs a little boost, and sometimes it's 2 or 3, and sometimes it's all 4 of them. So that can be totally custom made. It is really about your life, your challenges, your personality, your circumstances. It's really all about you. And this program, I'm really proud of it. I've seen that it really creates long-lasting change and transformation, as I like to say. It is really transformative. It's not about, how do I find friends abroad? We can talk about that too, because I've been there, done that a million times. But it's not about those, let's say, superficial things. Mm-hmm. It's really about how can I take this experience and this life and make the absolute best of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what it's about.
So
feel free to reach out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really great. I love that. Because also I think I would want to encourage people, if you resonate with what Camilla is saying, just reach out for a chat. That's why, we have those free consultations and she has them just so you could see if you were a fit. It's not going to hurt you. She doesn't bite, because it's about chemistry as well, right? So the better chemistry you have, the better results you often can receive, and the safer you can feel, the better you can open up. And also, sometimes, when you come to someone and you think you have a problem, very often you'll find, with working with a coach, you'll find out that maybe it's not the actual problem, it's a problem you present with. And that's where sort of the deeper work comes in. And that's what Camilla's program is about, really going to the basis and working on the foundational things to create a sustainable change, like she said.
And that's what I know, both you and I, what we're really passionate about is not providing a quick fix and giving a few exercises and basically putting a Band-Aid on the wound, but like really healing that wound from within. So yeah, that's super important.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for sharing. This was really, really interesting.
Thank you so much for your thoughtful questions. And I'm so glad I had the chance to, tell you all a bit more about what it is I do. And yeah.
Great. Thanks so much. If you guys have any questions, you can also, book a call with Camilla. Just post on her Instagram. You can post on the video below. We're happy. We always respond. We love to hear from you. And thank you so much for tuning in. Hope this was insightful, and we'll speak in 2 weeks.
Yay. Can't wait.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, share, and comment, and do let us know how our tips are working out for you. You can find our websites below, and we'd love to virtually meet you there.